Welcome back. I'm Tristan,
And I'm Ben.
and this is RWBY Ramblings, where we're going to discuss Volume 5, Episode 11.
It was a pretty awesome episode.
It was the fight scene that you've been waiting for the entire time, and it was a nice mix of nice facial expressions, interesting dialogue, new information, and tragedy.
Yeah, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that this is the fight scene that I've been waiting for like a volume.
Yeah, this is true. You've been waiting for some action the entire time.
And I was so excited that it finally happened.
Indeed. Well, want to just jump right in?
Yes.
Awesome. Alrighty, so opening scene. It's all nice and pretty. Courtyard, buildings, just walking, and something that I notice is that in their silence, there are some glances exchanged, which I think had a very nice way of showing kind of the general attitude of some of the characters and emphasized a little bit of the facial expressions I mentioned earlier. But
When we started the episode, I couldn't believe that I could tell that they were walking into it, obviously, because it was night. They were all there at the academy.
Yeah.
And I thought there was going to be a little more build-up before we got there, because it seems like they like to do a lot of build-up sometimes. And I wasn't expecting it to just jump right into it. So the episode started, and I was like, oh man, we are getting right into this. I love it.
yeah, getting right into the fight.
Yes.
Well, the encounter and then into the fight, but
Yes, of course.
yes.
So they roll up into the room,
Mm-hmm.
and Leo's there,
Yes.
being as awkward as ever,
With a weapon.
with a weapon, yes.
And then ironically asks them, "You brought your weapons?"
He's not a very good liar.
No, he's not. And Crow looks at him and says, "Leo, we're huntsmen. Of course we have our weapons. Come on, it's our job."
Mhm.
Are you okay?
And then, of course, Yang notices,
Raven, and then Crow shoots Raven, and then the encounter begins.
yes. And one thing that I saw a little bit about before we talked is that we know that Crow and Oz were suspicious of this whole thing
Yeah.
going into it. But, I mean, based on the episode, definitely, it seems like that they didn't warn anyone about it at all.
Yeah, it seems like that they didn't actually figure that they were going to get ambushed. They were just starting to get suspicious of Leo, but I guess they still thought that he was on their side.
Which might have been a little too much faith,
Yep.
as
well,
we see.
Yeah, there was a bit too much faith in him, which I held the same belief, so I don't blame them.
I never believed in him.
Oh. Poor Leo.
And also, to be fair, Oz and Crow, if they thought they were being ambushed, they probably only knew about Cinder and Mercury and Emerald, potentially.
I mean, I don't think they knew where they were located, but if they were expecting an ambush of some kind, it would probably be a mixture of the people that they had to deal with
They
in the
probably weren't
past.
expecting them plus Hazel plus Raven.
No, I don't. They definitely were not expecting Raven, and Hazel probably not. Considering they had interaction with Tyrion that one time, they might expect like some person they've never met before.
But they were definitely surprised,
Yes, certainly surprised.
much to their
And-
dismay.
Correct, and quite upset about it. But anyway, going on to the discussion where Raven strolls on in, Crow's unhappy with the scenario, and
To put it lightly, yeah.
to put it lightly, and then Ruby offers an olive branch.
Yes, that was very Ruby.
It was
very wholesome.
It was very lovely. I enjoyed it a lot.
It was a good try.
It was. Yeah, I liked it a lot. And then the interesting response of Raven was, "You sound just like your mother." Opens portal, fireball.
Yeah, and I think that was actually Ruby's first time meeting Raven,
I believe so.
which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But, well, I mean, that's probably, I actually don't know when Raven left.
I don't either.
So, like, maybe Ruby knew her when she was younger, But
Maybe.
it's definitely her first time in a while meeting Raven. I just thought of that.
I have a feeling that RWBY never met Raven, considering when Yang was in that scene where she's kind of bringing Ruby out into the forest. Ruby's a baby,
Right.
essentially.
That's true.
So I have a feeling RWBY never met Raven, and if she did, she would have been way too young to remember.
You're probably right, yeah.
But anyway, after the portal opens up and a fireball hits RWBY square in the chest, the real villains of the story come in with Cinder, primarily Cinder.
And a very Cinder-like entrance.
Yes.
Taking out her anger on RWBY. That was pretty great.
Dope. And in her sadistic nature, then continued to mention, oh yeah, this Leo guy, he's been giving us information for a very long time.
Before you continue, some more small errata that I noticed. I mean, this was probably seen before, but I never noticed it. That Leo actually has the tail, and he's actually a faunus.
Oh yeah, no.
I don't think I registered that.
Which
is probably my bad. But I don't know. It was cool to notice.
I mean, he is the.
I know he's Lionheart. I know he's supposed to be the cowardly lion.
Yes.
And I probably should have put two and two together, but I don't think I'd ever consciously registered that he's
a
oh
faunus.
yeah, he is actually literally a faunus. That must have been an interesting political thing.
Yeah.
With all the faunus discrimination.
Indeed. I also think it's going to be an interesting thing later as Lionheart, as we saw with Blake's dad, how he was able to transform and get a bit more bestial. I wonder if Lionheart's could be.
You think Lionheart could do
thing.
something like that as well?
Probably not nearly to the extent because of how old he is, but I imagine he can still do a little bit more than the average. I'm not going to say bear because I don't think he could beat a bear, but yeah.
Back to Cinder's sort of monologue, and also the realization for Crow and Co. that Leo had been selling them out for a long time.
Yes.
And that he was the one that sold out the information on the hunters and huntresses of Mistral to Salem, and then Hazel and Tyrion hunted them down.
Yes.
What did you think about that for his character?
I thought that was brutal. I mean, I wanted Leo to be a courageous lion and take on.
I know you had hopes for his redemption,
and switch sides and against Salem, but it seems like he's really deep into the thick of it.
Yeah, that, and then the events later in the episode.
The events later of the episode are going to make it seem like he is quite into the darkness.
And we'll get there.
We will get there.
But that was definitely disheartening for us.
Very much so.
And probably Osmond, I imagine.
And Crow as well.
Yes.
Crow,
yes.
as you could tell by his voice of, I couldn't find any of them.
Yeah. And then Cinder continues her monologue, where she's just being annoying.
Yes.
And it gets to John.
It does.
And I had kind of forgotten about that Jean was probably one of the people that was most emotionally affected by Pyrrha's death, because we haven't really seen a lot of his emotional struggle or conflict in the last, during the season.
No.
So it kind of caught me by surprise with the first time I saw it, when I saw that he was the first one for Cinder to get to crack.
Yeah, no, I found it interesting as well, because I felt that initially when I saw the episode, and I had felt that John was kind of steeling himself to go against the person that killed his really good friend and potential lover.
Right.
And instead, it turns out that he's just been bottling it up the whole time, and he really didn't have a handle on it at all.
And this really is super detrimental specifically to Jean, because Jean's strength is not that he's a good fighter.
No.
But it's that he thinks clearly and he's a good tactician.
Correct.
So when he's like this and he's an emotional wreck,
it's not.
He basically has no strengths at all.
Mm-hmm.
Not to be too harsh on Jean.
Oh no.
But his strength is that he's a tactician, and when he's not thinking straight,
it doesn't go well.
He attacks a maiden.
Yeah. He just kind of went out of his way.
Top 10 life choices, it's not on there.
He did go out of his way to directly attack Cinder, which, although explained later, is part of his plan.
Yeah, I don't know if I buy that he was planning that at that moment.
Maybe not.
But, if you wanted to give him credit, you could say he was.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that I noticed as the fight was starting, and with Yang, when Mercury showed up,
Yeah.
I kind of figured that she might have some PTSD, sort of, at least a little bit of anxiety, but we didn't really see that at all.
No, Yang did a very good job of keeping herself in check, considering all the shaking she's had throughout the season. So I was pretty impressed to see how well she handled it. I think part of it is that she has her friends to back her up.
Yeah, that's true.
And that Mercury is not someone she's afraid of.
True, more just angry.
I think she just kind of thinks Mercury's a punk that she can beat the crud out of, but we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, he's no Adam, so maybe we'll see a different reaction once Yang finds out that Adam is outside.
Yeah, and if she happens to run into him.
Which is something we didn't mention, that the White Fang are here, securing the perimeter. Adam's outside.
With a bunch of bombs on some buildings.
A bunch of bombs on the tower.
Yes. To continue that of things we haven't mentioned, Hazel blocks off their exit.
Yes, that was great.
That was fantastic.
I love the image of just how Team RWBY's in the middle, and then all these opponents are on one side, then on the other side is just Hazel.
It's just Hazel, and he
walks in Oscar / Ozpin / whatever. It's just like, oh no.
Yeah, they are concerned about Hazel.
And of the two people that I'm looking forward to see fight the most, Hazel and Raven definitely.
Yes.
Because we've been teased, specifically with Raven, we've been teased. And I'm really looking forward to both of them fighting. We know Hazel's really strong, probably, because he is one of Salem's lieutenants, not Cinder's lieutenants. So we have to assume he's at least comparably strong to Tyrion.
Yes, probably in different ways. It seems like Tyrion is more of the fast, elusive, I can poison you and you will die from it kind of. He's like a rogue, while it seems like Hazel might just be a you can't hurt
a juggernaut?
Me. Yeah.
That's okay, yeah. Anyway, yeah, so back to the White Fang being outside. So I think that connects to Blake is going to come in at some point, presumably. And obviously she is going to clash with the White Fang at the perimeter.
Yes.
With her crew, and then the rest of whatever part of the menagerie decides to come with her.
Correct.
And so I think that because of that, they're not really going to be able to get into the room, probably, because they're going to be stopped by Adam and co. And, best case scenario, they'll be able to stop them from blowing up the tower.
Yes.
But, we'll see how that... It's impossible to say. We'll see how that goes.
I have my doubts that things will go that well.
Yeah, I mean, probably not.
Probably not, especially if Grimm starts showing up, which is something we haven't mentioned, but it's also something that only might be a factor because it doesn't seem like there's necessarily going to be a huge amount of disarray, unless if those bombs go off, in which case there'll be a ton of disarray.
Absolutely, right. Because in when the Grimm attacked Haven Academy, not Beacon Academy, I'm sorry, they had to get past the Kingdom's defenses first.
Yes,
right.
And also they were brought in by the White Fang.
Right, yes, you're right.
But yeah, moving on.
You think they're going to do that again? They're going to bring in more Grimm?
I don't think
there aren't any students there, so...
I don't think they're bringing in Grimm this time. I think that if any Grimm show up, because they have the element of surprise, they don't need to cause a havoc yet.
You're right.
I don't think they're... Because the Grimm were essentially distractions the last time.
Giant dragon. Yeah, it's just a distraction.
It was just a distraction.
Yeah, okay.
A very useful distraction, but a distraction. Moving on to the actual fights.
The meat of this episode.
Which the trigger of is John losing his cool and attacking Cinder.
Cinder, who are you again?
Yeah.
She is, if I've learned anything in this episode, she is mean.
Well...
I mean, we knew that, but she was very sadistic towards John this episode.
Yeah, if you look into the dictionary for the word cruel, you find Cinder next to it with a nice picture of before and after.
That smile! That damn smile on her face!
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, Cinder pisses off Jean,
Yes.
and then Jean lunges at Cinder in a very ill-advised fashion.
Yes.
RWBY sees this and obviously goes to leap to his defense
Yes.
and is intercepted by Emerald.
Yeah, Emerald, with the desire of protecting Cinder, stops RWBY, who has previously shown is by far Cinder's greatest threat.
And then Yang sees this, tries to come in,
Mm-hmm.
and Mercury,
Steps in.
her old opponent,
Yes.
steps in and stops her. They start fighting.
Mm-hmm. With the nice quip of, "Hey, Blondie, I think you owe me an apology for my leg," in which I thought, shush.
Yeah, one thing I should mention, I really love, both here and in Volume 3, one of my favorite parts of the fights is, like, there's, like, a line of pre-fight banter every time. It really cracks me up. And, yeah, so, yes, I'll mention those more as they happen. But you're right, that one happens.
After that, we got Crow and Raven, the siblings, which unfortunately now apparently want to disband their family.
Yes, they had some very dramatic and emotional banter.
They did.
Understandably, though, from
Yes.
Crow's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't really know how sincere Raven is,
This is true.
because we know that she is planning something.
Yeah, she has a scheme in the back of her head to get the Tome of Knowledge, and I mean, it seems like she has showed that she cares a lot for family, and that's a very important
Right.
thing to her. But it seems like she's kind of disregarding Crow and kind of even her daughter a little bit in this moment.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
And we don't know if even if once she reveals that her plan is not actually to side with Cinder / Salem,
Mm-hmm.
like, will Crow be able to forgive her?
That's true, and also, will they even be able to get away? Because considering that she has said many times,
They're kind of trapped in this building.
yeah, and also there's no beating Salem, which, if she truly believes that, then how is securing the Tome of Knowledge going to make
Yeah,
her...
I was gonna bring that up as well,
Mhm.
because she says in her opening monologue to them, you've spied for Austin for so long, but you still don't know what you're up against.
Yeah.
You can't beat Salem. But clearly she doesn't think that Salem is like this unbeatable force, because her plan is to get the relic and like kind of hold her own ground.
It seems like maybe she thinks she can get away from Salem, not necessarily defeat her, but just kind of
Hide.
be elusive and never get found by her, which, if that's actually her goal, that's a pretty interesting one.
I don't know about that. Maybe.
Who knows? Well, we shall see. Moving on to the last fight not last fight.
There are like three more.
There are two more. There's Hazel vs Nora and Ren, which
Yes.
that banter was nice of, "I don't want to fight either of you," followed by Ren going, "Nora, you," and Nora saying, But we will if you are
with her. Yeah, I'm a voice actor on the side.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the only interesting thing to mention is that it doesn't seem like Hazel is a bad guy. So I'm curious why he's there, and I imagine we're gonna find that out somewhat soon.
Hopefully. And one thing, obviously, that really stood out to me is that, as far as we know, Hazel does not have any weapons.
No.
This fight with Ryan and Nora is what we see in the intro.
Yes.
And he's just using his hands.
Yeah. That's all he needs.
And so I kind of had this great mental image
Mm-hmm.
of him. He's attending a Huntsman Academy,
Uh-huh.
and he shows up on the first day.
Yeah.
And everyone's showing off their weapons.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, Hazel, where's your weapon?" And Hazel's like, "What do you mean? I am my weapon." And they're like, "Are you sure we can get you like some shotgun gauntlets or something?"
Mm.
He's like, yeah.
Yeah.
So
No, it's a funny image of just,
I'm
gonna just punch him to death.
I'm glad that in this world of hyper weapons and violence, he's just like, yeah, whatever, I'll just punch things.
Yeah. I'm a classic guy. And then the last fight.
There are two more.
There are two more.
Yes. You
Weiss
say
and
yours, then I'll
Vernal.
say the other one. Weiss and Vernal, and then Oz and Leo.
Ah, yes. There is Oz and Leo.
There's a reason I have this list.
Yes, good.
Anyway, Weiss and Vernal.
Yes,
That is a big fight.
indeed. Indeed, that is a pretty big fight. The opening of which is, oh, just deal with the...
Pretty insulting coming out from
Yeah.
Raven. Oh, you don't need to use your powers for her. She's not worth it.
Yeah, that's a pretty rough...
And then Weiss, of
Statement.
course, has this great chance to prove herself.
Yes.
As she says when, Vernal is like, let's see what the Schnee name means. And Weiss is like, I'm more than just a name. Her whole personal growth arc and separating from her father's legacy, etc.,
Yes.
etc.
Yes.
So this is her chance, one of her chances. And then, as we see, she kind of blows it.
Unfortunately, it does seem like she is a bit out of her league. I mean, going against a maiden is not something that's an easy task, but she is.
But she's not using her powers, so she's pretty much just a person.
She's pretty much just a well-trained person. I mean, she is trained by Raven, so that is one heck of a teacher.
That's true. And also, I don't think just the way that Weiss fights,
Mhm.
she's not really suited for one-on-one combat because all of her glyphs, all of her runes and stuff, they're all sort of like channeled abilities that
Yeah.
take like a couple seconds, as we see in the fight, obviously.
Mhm.
We see that Weiss keeps trying to use her glyphs.
Yeah.
She tries to she puts her sword down, she puts her hands together,
Yeah.
and every time Vernal just interrupts her. And so
Mhm.
Weiss effectively is locked out of doing anything.
Yeah.
And obviously, when she tries to do the summon, she even creates the wall,
Mhm.
and Vernal just like slices right through it.
Yeah, completely destroys the wall.
And so, just because of the way she fights, like she needs someone in there to be in front of her,
Mhm.
like distracting while she's like the caster in the back line.
Yeah, she does have a rough time. She keeps trying. She's really relying on summoning her big white knight, but it doesn't work out because Vernal doesn't give her the time she needs to do it.
Right. And one fight that this is like a chain of one-on-one fights, and one thing that this reminded me of and was the fight on the train in Volume 2,
Mm-hmm.
Episode 11-ish.
Okay.
And when Yang, Weiss, and Blake are fighting the opponents on the train.
Mm-hmm.
And what I was thinking of specifically was, like, in terms of Team RWBY, like, is Weiss, like, the weakest link in terms of fighting skill on the team? Because
might be.
thinking back to that fight, Yang fights Neo,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously Yang loses, but, like, we don't blame her because Neo's, like, a level above him.
Yeah.
And also Yang she went through a lot of training in Volume 4. That was, like, all she did.
Mm-hmm.
And she realized her problem was she was relying on her semblance too much, which
Yes.
she was. And Tai Yang kind of taught her and hopefully got her mostly past that. And it seems like she's a much stronger fighter.
Mm-hmm.
If we look at Weiss's fighting, she kind of has the same problem because she relies a lot on her glyphs.
Indeed.
And as we can see, when her glyphs are interrupted and she doesn't have a chance to use them, then, she kind of got wrecked by Vernal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but back to the train fight, Yang fights Neo, and that goes poorly, predictably. Blake fights Torchwick, and Blake knocks out Torchwick in like 2 seconds, which is really impressive.
Yeah.
And then Weiss just fights this like random chainsaw guy, and she kind of loses to him.
Yeah.
So she gets like tossed into the next train car,
Mm-hmm.
and then Blake, and Yang show up, and they dispatch him, presumably, which we don't actually see. But
Yes.
so, I mean, she kind of lost that fight. And
I would say so.
and if you think about it, in terms of like their teachers and their upbringing,
Mm-hmm.
RWBY was taught by Crow,
Yes.
who is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Yang had some problems, like similar problems to Weiss, but she had just been trained additionally by Taiyang, and now she's a lot better fighter.
Yes.
Blake has kind of been learning on the job ever since she was young.
Mm-hmm.
She's just been like, a revolutionary. And she was also taught by presumably Gira, and then later on Adam, who's
Mhm.
kind of OP. And then Weiss, she has Winter, but Winter is only a couple years older than her.
Yeah, and it also seems that her training didn't help Weiss that much because Weiss still had issues of dealing with a whole bunch of different enemies, and she wasn't able to actually learn all the stuff that she needed to from Winter, and Winter even states that I won't be able to save you.
Yes,
every
and
time.
speaking of that literal exact scene, one thing that I noticed when Weiss is fighting Vernal, when she's like hopping around, like
Mhm.
I think the second time we see her hopping around and dodging bullets and stuff, to me it looked like the same camera angle as the trailer for this episode, the Weiss trailer for this episode, when she's doing the training with Winter. And it just, I noticed this like the second time I was watching it, but it really just made me think like this is the throwback, and this is what Winter is talking about. Like I won't always be there to save you, and that really hits home at the end of the episode.
Yeah. Now moving on to this time the actual last fight, which is Leo
and Oz.
Yes. / Oscar, which is great because Oscar just kind of walks up there. He has his fist clenched, and Leo's like, wait, child. Hold on. I don't know what you're doing here, but you need to stop. I'm warning you, and points a weapon at him.
And this is where Leo is a total dick. Because, I just want to point out that Leo has no idea who this kid is. He thinks it's just a random kid.
Yeah.
And he has almost no hesitation to literally murdering this child with a fireball. He's like, all right, don't come any closer. And then 1 second later, he's like, pow!
Yeah.
He just thinks it's a random kid.
Yeah, after Oscar unclenches his fists and reach behind him, he even pauses. He just waits. He just looks at Leo, and Leo just unleashes on him, and then he protects himself, and then pulls out his cane, and then Leo is startled. He's like, "Oh no, is
rightfully
it
so." Yeah.
And then Oscar, not quite, and just wails on him.
Very fulfillingly.
So happy to see Oscar kicking some butt.
That was great. Yes.
It was. I like Oscar a lot. So to see how much progress he has made in terms of combat has been very nice to see.
And one thing that I kind of noticed is before Oz was doing a lot of taking over for Oscar. But this episode, that didn't really happen.
No.
Which makes me think that they're becoming closer, in the mind meldy way.
Sure.
I don't know exactly what the details of the process are, obviously, but it seems to me like they're getting closer to being just one Ozpin.
Maybe they are merging into one being, or maybe Oscar is gonna keep some sort of personality about him. We're not really sure how this works.
It'll influence Ozpin's personality, but do you think they're gonna call him Oscar or Ozpin?
I'm sorry?
Do you think when they're done mind melding, do you think they're gonna call him Oscar or Ozpin?
Probably Ozpin.
Probably Ozpin.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, he's probably gonna stay Ozpin. Because Oz can work for both Oscar or Ozpin.
Yeah, that's why he only passes on to people whose name starts with Oz. Otherwise, it's just awkward.
We don't know his history of body swapping.
Because if it was a Fred, then it would be real confusing.
Well, don't worry. I have a feeling the creators of RWBY have that figured out. Let's see, but yeah. Besides that, moving on, I guess, to the continuation of the fights with how we have the progression of Weiss and Vernal's fight not going well. Weiss is...
yeah, let's talk about the balance of all of these fights, because
okay, sure.
The just a quick rundown, because the fights are very clearly, the good guys are very clearly outmatched here.
Yes.
Juane and Cinder's fight, obviously that's a joke. Cinder is a million times stronger than Juane.
Unfortunately.
When he's not thinking straight.
Yeah.
Emerald and RWBY is fairly even, but RWBY's not really trying to hurt Emerald, at least from what it looks like, because...
I think RWBY could beat Emerald. The issue is that RWBY's very distracted and doesn't want to actually hurt her. Right.
As we see in the RWBY and Emerald fight, RWBY is... Well, first she tries to talk to Emerald, and we kind of learn a little bit about Emerald's motivation. She owes so much to Cinder. Touching.
Her only motivation is protecting Cinder.
Yes, right. And then, of course, moving on in that fight, she's distracted when she sees... When Juane tells Cinder to stop messing around, and she pulls out her
super sword,
real flaming sword,
and
Cinder's flaming laser sword.
Yeah.
RWBY turns around and remembers Pyrrha's death, and the silver eyes kick in.
Yes.
And that was a moment.
It was a pretty impressive moment of...
What did you think of it?
Well, I felt that the Silver Eyes were going out, but then were quickly interrupted by Emerald knocking Ruby out, which
Mm.
I think that mitigated the ability of the Silver Eyes because they did not get nearly as they didn't have enough time to spread out or to gain power. Because I think they might, as you said, Weiss's things might be channeling. The Silver Eyes might to some degree be channeling as well. That they need a little bit of time to get to full force. And honestly, when you see how far they spread out, they barely get to Cinder and John.
Huh.
I don't even think it overlaps with them. I think it's just what hit Cinder is the edge of the aura of the Silver Eyes.
I thought it hit her pretty squarely, but I'd have to like check.
Mm-hmm.
That's not really what I was thinking about the Silver Eyes.
Yeah.
Is well, what I thought about it is that it seemed to me like what triggers them is when Ruby sees something or goes through something that's traumatic.
Okay.
Right? Like the first time they were triggered was obviously when Pyrrha was killed right in front of her.
Yes.
That was incredibly traumatic for Ruby.
Yes.
And we had this huge blast of power that disfigured half of Cinder's body.
Yes.
And turned a dragon to stone.
Yes. All the Grimm in the area to stone, but yes.
Yes. And that was pretty incredible.
Yes.
And so to me, what they seem like is they seem kind of like tears, like which are, they're triggered by grief, right? In a way. And
Okay.
so, hear me out.
I will.
Okay. And so in this situation, what it seemed to me was that she saw Cinder lunging at Jean, and that's not what triggered her Silver Eyes. What triggered her Silver Eyes was when she saw that she remembered Pyrrha's death.
Yes.
And just the memory of that, it wasn't as traumatic to her as actually seeing Pyrrha die.
Sure.
Which is why I think the Silver Eyes didn't have as much of an effect. They really just, they hit Cinder and she like fell for a second, which we'll get to. But that's why. That's how I interpret it. That's why I thought they were weaker. But I also see where you're coming from because, Emerald did knock her out.
Yes.
And she was lying on the floor.
Yes.
For the rest of the episode.
Yes. So, in response to that, I feel that calling them tears is, I don't think that's necessarily accurate. To me, it kind of feels like they act as it's generally a power that she has and she just doesn't have control over it.
Right.
So at the moment the catalyst is just strong emotions, and Ruby's pretty good at keeping her emotions in check for the most part. So when something traumatic happens, it just happens to lead to the Silver Eyes. I don't think there's necessarily a cause and effect. I think it's just at the moment a coincidence that this is what triggers them, because I don't think she has any control over them at all. And to go on to the weakened state of them, I still think it's not necessarily the strength of the memory, as I don't feel that is what gauges how much power comes out. But I hope we learn more about these Silver Eyes.
Oh yeah, I hope we do.
As the volume progresses, as the very first time we learned anything about them, essentially was at the very end of Volume 3.
Today at lunch, I learned that one of my friends has Silver Eyes, and I was like,
Really?
Just a side note. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Anyway. Oh yeah. So, I don't know. I like the tears thing because I think it's like I think it's poetic enough that like it could have like been written like that. I just think it's I like it. I think it's really cool.
Okay.
But like I understand where you're coming from.
Well, we shall see in time.
We will see. Yes.
Now, going back a little bit before we get into the interaction between John and Cinder, is that when John charged at her and asked her or told her stop messing with me, it was because Weiss's aura broke, meaning that she's now vulnerable.
Oh, right. And Cinder was like,
yes.
You gonna let her die too?
Yes. So that then led to John's charge and Cinder's response, leading to Ruby's response, leading to then Cinder's weakening, and then John making a desperate lunge at her face. Which means business.
That was great. When I saw that like in slow-mo, I was like
Yeah, no, that was a very well made moment.
Yeah, it really was.
Especially with just like the slow motion, followed by the quick dodge and the chip of
And
the mask.
One thing I really noticed about that scene was Cinder's, like, because it was slow-mo, we really got a chance to see Cinder's facial expression change. And at the beginning, when John lunged at her, she was just like shock, and then very quickly, like, it turned to like disgust. Like, how dare you? Which, you know, is kind of what she says.
Yes.
So I noticed that in particular, and I thought it was really good.
Yeah, most of the facial expressions, I would say, of the characters have been very well done, but that's a very key, and that's a pretty good moment to point out of how far the people have come in making it so the facial expressions really show the characters.
Oh yeah, when I went back to watch the train fight in Volume 2, it's a huge difference. Obviously. But
yes,
it's just, I noticed it.
Now, continuing, Cinder stepping on John, telling him, "How dare you try to fight me? Did you really think you had a chance?" And John responding with, "No, I'm just here to stall for them because they're the ones that matter," bringing out Cinder's sadistic nature of, oh, you care about them, don't you? Let's change that.
Yeah.
Let's do some math and reduce some numbers.
And obviously this is the part of the episode.
This is the capstone of the episode where Cinder turns away from John, spawns a javelin, walks toward Weiss, who has just been laid out and
getting wrecked by Vernal. Her aura is already broken.
Yep, so she is vulnerable to taking physical harm. Cinder throws the spear, smiling after throwing it.
Very casually thrown.
Impaled. Weiss.
Damn.
That, speaking of facial expressions, those were some well done facial expressions in terms of a person who just got impaled by a javelin.
Speaking of facial expressions, my facial expression when I watched that scene,
probably not great. Yeah. Probably quite shocking.
That was
rough.
And let me just say that right afterwards, when the spear disintegrates, I had like a heart attack because I thought Weiss was going to disintegrate, just like Pyrrha did.
Yeah. It had the same setup. She's in the center of the screen. She's kneeling the exact same way. And then after the spear disintegrates, she starts falling forward, which...
I'm glad she didn't disintegrate.
Correct. Which is just the first piece of evidence that Weiss is not going to die.
And let's get to that in a second.
Yes.
One thing I heard someone say, actually, pretty recently, was that Cinder throws, like, a javelin at Weiss.
Yes.
And then a javelin is also, like, kind of Pyrrha's weapon.
Yes.
So that's kind of, like, a cruel irony.
Yes, I thought that as well.
I didn't notice that the first couple of times I watched it. But, yeah, I heard someone say that, and that's, like, really...
Yeah, no, that's
I don't know if that was intentional on Cinder's part or the creators. Definitely the creators' part, maybe. I don't know if it was intentional by Cinder.
I think intentional by Cinder. She's as we know, she's a kind of a prick.
Yeah, definitely.
She likes to push it where it hurts.
And then just before we get down to the speculation of the other ones,
sure,
of the future, of what's going to happen to Weiss.
Yes.
Just to run through the other fights.
Sure.
We said the Yang. I think we said the Yang and Mercury fight was. I think that's like the most balanced fight.
It is
going on. And obviously, all the fights are going to change once Team Good Guys loses someone.
Yeah.
But up until that point, I feel like the Yang and Mercury fight, seemed like they were pretty evenly matched.
Agreed.
For the rematch. And then Crow and Raven, we didn't really see them at all. I think we have to assume they're pretty even.
Yeah, they got taken off screen real quick, but they're probably quite even.
Yeah. And then obviously Weiss got wrecked.
Yes, unfortunately.
And then Ren and Nora versus Hazel.
Hazel doesn't care. Hazel's completely fine.
My money's on Hazel in that one.
Yeah.
Especially thinking about it, if he's comparable in power level to Tyrion.
Yeah.
Tyrion
took on everyone.
Team Ranger.
Yeah.
Before Crow stepped in.
Correct.
But I mean, this is just Team Ern.
Yeah, yeah, and it's not going to go well for them if Hazel actually
And-
starts meaning business,
And Hazel just, yeah.
which
so,
she doesn't. He's
Clearly.
very nonchalant about, oh, hey, you're going to try to hit me a little bit? That's fine. It doesn't matter.
And then Oz and Leo,
I want Oscar to kick some ass.
I was hoping Oscar would make like a bigger difference in the fight, but yeah, like Leo said, he's not really at full strength yet, so I don't
Yeah.
know.
And I mean, it's Oscar's strength, not Ozpin's at the moment. So,
Right.
it's considering where Oscar started and where he is now, he has improved a lot. So, I'm very happy with how he is doing in this fight.
Right.
But yeah, now time for the Weiss talk.
The Weiss talk.
What we think is going to happen
Nice Weiss.
to Weiss.
Oh yeah, so I think obviously, and I can't believe we didn't mention this yet, but this has to be the point where John Semblance kicks in.
Yes,
Like things are looking real bad in this room right now,
very much so.
and there has got to be something that saves them.
Mhm.
And we thought it might be Blake, but Blake's
Yes.
probably not going to get there.
Ruby's silver eyes are now out of commission. She's unconscious.
We've already used those once. There's a cooldown. We gotta wait.
Yeah,
Um,
she's also unconscious, but yeah.
Details, yeah, and yeah, things are looking bleak,
Yes.
and they're bound to get worse,
Yes.
as someone once told me.
I think that's the intro, but yes.
So John Semblance,
Mm-hmm.
what do you think's gonna happen?
I think John Semblance is it is in the list of the reasons why I think Weiss won't die. And I think it is one of two things. One, a guardian angel. It is going to protect all of his friends in a way so that they can no longer receive any physical harm. No one can
Okay.
interact with them, and they can't interact with anyone else.
Okay.
Two, it's a healing sort of thing where it'll just have it so he can in some sort of manner heal his allies.
Yeah, one of the
But
what
yeah,
I've
that's-
heard just from like reading comments is that
Sure.
John is very like paladin-y,
Mm-hmm.
and so his semblance probably has something to do with healing or protection. Or something, which
Maybe both.
we don't really know,
No, we don't know at this point yet.
but hopefully it's something awesome because they need something awesome here.
Yeah, no, they
And so, how do you
they
think?
do.
So you think John Semblance is gonna protect Dwight somehow?
Yes.
How do you think the rest of this fight's gonna go? Because they're kind of outgunned at this point.
I mean,
They
I
were to
think-
begin with, but
Yes.
now they're even more so.
I mean, that's why I feel like his thing's going to be a protective thing to make it so that it stops all the other fights from being able to continue.
That would be very useful.
Because that'll make it so it's like, oh, we can't fight them anymore, and we're on a time limit because we got to go with that Tomb of Knowledge.
Right? Yeah. Of course.
Tome of Knowledge, let's go and leave these guys to the White Fang. I feel like that's what's going to happen because otherwise I'm not really sure how the fights can get really resolved and save Weiss at the same time.
Yeah. I guess something that I kind of forgot is that Cinder's goal is not. I mean, it is to fight Ruby,
Yes.
but her goal is not like they're not there to fight them.
No.
Their goal is just to go to the vault,
Mm-hmm.
get the relic,
And leave.
and then of course, Raven's plan has
Yes.
to kick into gear
Yes,
at some point.
indeed.
And that, I mean, that'll change the fight somehow. It's
Yeah.
really impossible to say. As we saw in this episode when Weiss, I don't think anyone saw that coming.
I find it hard to imagine that someone would think
It's a
that-
very specific thing to predict.
Yes.
But it's impossible to say what's going to happen when Raven executes her plan.
Yes.
What's going to happen in this fight? What John
Yes.
Semblance is going to be.
Yes.
That being said, do you have any idea as what's going to happen when Raven executes her plan? Even though I said it was impossible to predict.
No. I mean, we don't even know where the relic is, so we don't know if they're gonna have to leave or where they're gonna really have to go. And I
Right.
mean, that on its own could change the dynamic of the fight, but I think we should focus a little bit more on what might happen to Weiss, because I think that's gonna dictate
Okay.
kind of what happens. But going back to the theories I have of why Weiss might live, well, I'm gonna go from least likely to most likely.
Go for it.
Least likely. Emerald does her powers to make it look like Weiss got impaled. Only reason I think this, she looked at Cinder. She then saw what Cinder was going to do and looked at Weiss. Only reason I think that, highly doubt
Seems
that's
pretty
the case.
unlikely.
Very unlikely.
Especially because there's an audio cue when she does that.
Correct. Now, the second most unlikely thing. Some sort of Deus Ex Machina we haven't seen yet or haven't predicted.
That's not John Semblance.
Correct. Next thing, John Semblance.
Oh, okay.
Either the protective factor or the healing factor or both. I'm a little bit more in favor for the protective factor, mainly because that would make it so that the fight has to kind of stop and that the people would have to
Again, that
focus
would be nice.
On the Tome of Knowledge.
So we don't lose any other main characters.
And lastly, that spear was not a killing blow location. That was a kidney-esque location. That wasn't a heart, which is what hit Piera. So I think...
Yeah, I think they made it very clear that it was not, like, it didn't go through her heart.
Yes.
It didn't go through her spine.
No.
It went through, like, the side of her body.
Yes. That is a non-lethal shot.
Yeah.
A non-instant killing shot. Lethal, potentially. But so I think that as Weiss is the personification of Snow White to some degree, that she's going to go into some sort of state of suspended animation or a coma. So I think that she's not going to die, but she's not going to be in action for a while.
That's a good point. Yeah. The Snow White. Yeah, that could happen.
Lastly, I paid a lot of attention to the opening lyrics, and I just want to read off some quotes that just makes me think that Weiss is going to be fine. I won't die. That is very explicitly stated. Followed by, the battle seems unwinnable, but all we need is a miracle. Miracle being John Semblance. And then, we will live for sure. We will endure. We will endure, when that happens, Weiss is just on the camera. She is the center of that attention for about that
She's
exact
like
split
riding
second
the sword of her thing.
Of her giant white soldier, which if that ever happens, that's going to be sick.
Yes, it will.
So I think she's going to be fine. Is she going to die? No. Is she going to be out of commission for a while? Probably.
Yeah, our musical cover of the opening song is "It's Dropping Soon." No, I'm just kidding.
No,
but I mean, you're right. The opening song, it does turn to optimism after the initial bleakness.
It does.
This is very much what this is. This is the initial bleakness.
Yes.
And so we can only hope that it will
get better,
turn into something good. That being said, we've had our hopes dashed before.
Tell me about it. Volume 3. Oof. Oof.
Oof, indeed.
Yeah.
So, like I said, it's really hard to say because they love pulling the twists on us.
They do. But, do you have anything else you want to add before we kind of sum up?
No, I think that's pretty much it.
Mm-hmm. All right. In that case, we pretty much mainly just went through the fights, how we felt that they were going to go, that we felt that the bad guys had the upper hand, how the White Fang is prepping, how Hazel's a badass.
Side note, I do really like seeing the bad guys beat the good guys, so, I mean, I just want to reiterate how much I really enjoyed this episode.
Glad to hear it.
I don't think I said that enough, but, I'm so glad this episode happened. I've been looking forward to it for so long, and I'm so glad that it's going to continue in the next at least one episode.
Correct.
So, okay, I'm sorry. Go back to your song.
No. That was fine. Talked about how Leo's betrayal has been pretty dampening in my idea of that he's going to rise up.
He's pretty damned, yes.
He's pretty in trouble. How we don't think Weiss is going to die despite her injury.
Probably
and
not.
that John Semblance is going to be revealed.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
Finally.
That's kind of about it for we have for summary. Do you want to talk about the updates and plans that we have for our podcast?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Okay. For updates, we're just kind of going to continue posting on SoundCloud and YouTube. we haven't really spoken about our general plan for the podcast, but it's essentially that we want to keep having these casual conversations about RWBY because we do. This is what we used to do, just at lunches and such. And we decided that, oh hey, if someone else would maybe be interested or maybe get an idea off what we said, why not try to make a podcast about it? And so after Volume 5, we're gonna go back and start working on the other volumes so that someone who's new to RWBY or who's just been a long-time fan could have a second opinion about maybe some ideas about RWBY, and then would also give a location for people to discuss about it.
And also, I'm sure, just like that, after this volume, like, we'll be able to have a new perspective on previous volumes. And
yeah, I mean, in my personal opinion, we should have it where we attempt to keep the stuff that happens in future volumes.
Ooh, like spoiler-free?
Spoiler-free,
Ooh.
Simply because it's
yeah.
for
Then
a
someone
growing
could watch
audience.
it like as
Yes.
they watch. Okay.
And then we can have separate episodes where we talk specifically about certain episodes, like, oh wow, look at this foreshadowing
Sounds
and stuff
fun.
like that. Besides that, if you want to
Email us.
if you want to post something or email us, our Gmail account is RWBYRamblings@gmail.com. If you want to send us any questions that we can try to answer on the podcast, please send them there. If you just
Or post them in whatever comments there are.
correct, you can post them in the comments of YouTube or SoundCloud as well. Thank you very much for listening. We greatly appreciate you spending your time with us. We know there are many things to do on the internet, so
If anyone at all is listening, I just want you to know that I deeply appreciate you.
indeed.
Thank you.
This was RWBY Ramblings, episode 3. I'm Tristan.
And I'm Ben.
See you guys next time.